Hello, everyone out there in the virtual world. We are so psyched that you're joining us. And we're really hoping that this can resonate and can feel like we're all together in person as we're, funny little squares on a computer chatting to each other. My name is Corinne. I am both an acupuncturist and a podcast host. And I really just first want to celebrate the women that have created this, Olivia Spitzer and Sarah Fuller. They created the Parent Trip initially as this event for parents to really be able to interact and meet providers from, their prenatal experience all the way through their kiddos going on to school. And they reached out to me with this idea to start to, extend the Parent Trip to fertility as well, because that's the inception and conception point. And so I just think that it's really beautiful. We've brought together these amazing providers, and they have a wealth of knowledge and shared experience. And so I'm just looking forward to hearing more from them. And I really hope that this can be interactive. So if you have questions, please throw them out there, and we can get some answers live for you. So just a little background on me. Like I said, acupuncturist. I'm a podcast host. Mikey and Rinne stay in with my hubby. We started the podcast really just as an opt-in for family and friends. I found out I was pregnant after about a year of trying, and we got really excited and wanted to be able to share, our journey. And 3 super happy episodes in, I had a miscarriage, and it was a huge shock. And we decided to keep talking. And so I, shared that story. And as we shared that story, we had people in our inner circle start to reach out with their miscarriage stories and their fertility journeys. And we thought, God, what a cool platform and opportunity to be able to really share these stories and get them out in the world. And so we kept talking, and we kept talking to other people and couples along their fertility journeys. And here we are a year and a half later. And it's been so rich and so amazing and healing for me, and also just a really incredible journey to be on. And so I'd love to introduce our panel. They're just a wealth of knowledge. And so I really hope that that everyone listening can reach out and really access their beautiful, beautiful brains. So first we have Andrea Thompson, who is a licensed massage therapist. We have Dr. Kelsey Stang, who is an incredible naturopathic physician. And then we also have Erin Brockmeyer, who is not only a licensed acupuncturist, but also an herbalist. And combined experience here of a ton of years and a lot of wisdom. So I thought that I would just open it up, and maybe each of you could share a little bit about you, because I think it'd be really incredible to hear, perhaps how you got into working with fertility clients specifically, and then we'll sort of go into some other questions and kind of dig a little deeper. So I'm just going to start with you, Andrea. Talk to us a little bit about how you got lit up to work with fertility patients.
Yeah. So I've been doing massage for about 20 years, and I've always been really drawn to pregnant women and babies. It's just, pregnant folks are so amazing to me in the ways that the body transforms and that whole process. And as I was doing a lot of the work that I do, I started focusing a little bit more on infant craniosacral work, and wanting to find ways to work more so with infants and pregnant people. and doing prenatal massage. And as I was researching more and more, what I happened upon was the idea of doing fertility work via massage. And I did some training with a person in North Carolina, Claire Marie Miller, who has a whole fertility protocol. And I did that probably about 8 years ago now. And that kind of opened the doorway for me. And I was super excited about it to find that a lot of the work that I do can really help free up the body for fertility. And so I've from there done some training through our Vigo and done some holistic pelvic care work. And all of that together, I combine to do fertility work with my clients. It's pretty powerful, and I really love it.
It's so beautiful too that you have this piece of working with, pregnant people and then infants. So you've got this through line, which is, it's just, that must be such an incredible journey for you to go on with a family.
Yeah, it's really sweet because I can be there as the support system to help people's bodies prep for fertility and conception, and then work with them through the pregnancy, and then work on their newborn, which I've had with many of my clients, and it's really magical. Yeah.
Amazing. How about you, Kelsey? Tell us a little bit more about your journey to working with fertility patients.
Yeah. I have always similarly been really interested in the pregnancy aspect of things. From a young age, I remember I wanted to be a home birth midwife. That was just, I wanted to deliver babies. And then when I was in my undergrad, my sister, who's a bit older than me, was having a hard time conceiving and ended up going through IVF. And it kind of opened my eyes to, it's not just this beautiful, empowering, birth of a baby and a family, but also can be really hard work, emotionally and physically. And so that kind of sparked my curiosities in how I can support people throughout the entire journey of getting pregnant and during pregnancy and postpartum. And so when I came up to Portland for naturopathic school here, I really knew I wanted to focus on fertility, and women's health was where it kind of started. And then it kind of morphed into fertility care and pregnancy co-care and postpartum.
Amazing. I think it's so incredible too, that you had this experience with your sister going through IVF and seeing, how much support and love I'm going through IVF right now. And it really does feel like my community and my providers that I have just been, it's unbelievable the amount of support I have felt, and how I really believe that's gotten me to 3 little frozen embryos.
Yeah. It's all those little wins. I love the phrase, stacking up those small wins. That's awesome. But yeah, it's such a turmoil of an experience. So I think there's lots of support to be held there for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we have Erin Brockmeyer. Talk to us about your journey.
Similarly to these other 2 ladies, I always was interested in reproductive health. I remember being in grad school for East Asian medicine and hearing about dysmenorrhea, which means painful menses, and how we were going to learn to treat it. And a light bulb went off in me thinking, wait a minute, if we're learning how to treat this, this means we don't have to have pain. How come I didn't know this? And I'm 28 years old, and, I have friends who have to take narcotics every month because their periods are so painful. And so right away, I knew that I wanted to focus on the reproductive system, and how can we empower people to learn more about their bodies so that they have the power and the knowledge and the understanding that will help them get through the world healthier. And then when I was 30, we decided we were going to start trying to have a baby. And before we even started trying, I was like, I'm going to do all the right things. I'm going to see my naturopath for 6 months before we even try, even though there's nothing wrong with me. I'm super healthy. Everything is regular. I hadn't been on birth control pills for years. And then we couldn't get pregnant. And it took a long time. And the ups and downs of it, the 2-week wait every month, having a hard time being happy for friends and family members when they announced their pregnancies, and then feeling like I was an awful person for having those thoughts. Just going through that, I knew for sure that fertility was really where I wanted to focus. And then, of course, subsequently with that comes the pregnancy and the postpartum time period. Just really, it's not just about the physical part, it's about that mental and emotional part and the transitions that you go through from, pre having a baby to actually having a child. That's where I really wanted to help and be a support to that emotional piece through there, because it's really hard. It's hard on your relationships. It's hard on your identity. And so I knew that I could help, not just with that physical piece, but like I said, with that emotional piece.
That's so beautiful. I think that sometimes we're really, concerned about mama as she's growing this little baby. And then there seems to be, once baby is had, attention then goes baby. And I just love that you're sort of speaking to that continuing relationship with mama to really make sure that she's supported afterwards. Well, as you guys can see, we've got 3 freaking powerhouses here. So I thought we'd just jump in with some questions. And like I said, feel free to type up a question for any of the providers in the chat, and I'll relay their questions to you, and we'll get some answers live. So I think the first sort of most logical thing is to just really figure out who you guys as providers can help. And there'll probably be some crossover, but I know that each one of you have this really unique gift to bring. And so let me just go back to you, Andrea, and who is it that you feel like is, you're really called to work with, and who can you best help?
That's a great question. So many of the people who come to me are people who really start coming to me because they're struggling with their cycle in general. So if they're having an irregular cycle or a painful cycle, or if they're having a lot of disconnect with their body in general. I do work with trans folks and non-binary folks to really help them begin to kind of connect with what I like to call their creative cauldron, what other people call their womb space, to really engage with that area so that they can make sure it's as healthy and clear as possible before they bring a child into the world. So that's a lot of the arena that I'm working in, is people who are already kind of struggling with menstrual issues or body connection, and then moving into fertility from there. I
love that phrase, creative cauldron. I had to write it down.
And I think I'm trying to hashtag and claim that, because I feel like it's so beautiful. It feels really powerful.
You really have to trademark that, because it's, I think about it from, Erin's and my medicine that we share. There's this, we have this idea of the center, the sort of, call it the dantian, right? And so it's from there that everything else is born. So it's not even necessarily, conceiving a child. That's a big important piece, but also just this bubbling up of other creation as well. So beautiful.
Yeah. Of literally everything we manifest in the world, I feel like comes from that space. The ways in which we move through the world and the things we want to create and craft. Yeah, it's really powerful. And so to have a connection to that and have that space be really clear. I work a lot with cleaning up digestion by really massaging into the intestinal tract and really figuring out what's happening with uterus. Where is it sitting and how is it being held? And is the musculature around it really soft and pliable and supple? And how can we get all of that area to really feel comfortable and at ease and in a place where it can hold a child and hold a life, but also where it has the strength to be able to push that out into the world. So yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and also thinking about working with the digestive system too, not just, you're working with the creative cauldron, but you're also working on being able to eliminate and let go of things that are no longer needed. So I love that, the duality of that. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. How about you, Kelsey? Who are the peeps that you feel like you can really best help?
Yeah. I think my ideal patient is usually somebody who's more kind of already on the health conscious train, has already kind of started thinking about how they can improve their health for fertility or getting pregnant. But in terms of like who along the spectrum of fertility, I really see anyone from 6 months prior to wanting to start trying to conceive through, a scheduled IVF in 2 weeks or something like that. So the spectrum is really wide, and there's a lot of things that we can do within any of those realms. It's just a little different. So like 6 months prior to wanting to conceive, we're working on like a deep dive into detox or removing any obstacles to health, if you will, getting cycles really regular, working on digestion as well, because while it's also how we're eliminating, I think of it as like, how are we absorbing nutrients to prepare for healthy egg creation and sperm creation, and making sure that nutrients are healthy and well in that way. And then, further along the spectrum of already having tried for a number of months or suffered a pregnancy loss or something like that, kind of looking deeper into what other imbalances can be going on. That kind of falls into the realm of reproductive health, right? Looking at things like PCOS or endometriosis, chronic digestive issues like IBS or IBD, and autoimmune disease, thyroid disease, kind of all of those things. So working in that bigger like medical picture that also is what is, filtering into perhaps difficulties with trying to conceive. I also do a lot of work in genetic polymorphisms. So the most common one that folks hear about is MTHFR. And I've done a lot of training in that realm of how can we support genetic function, which is talking to our body and how to make hormones and how to make neurotransmitters and how to support fertility on that more like sciencey level. I also do Arvigo, Andrea. So I also think of that world in terms of uterine support as well, physically with body work, which is also really powerful to kind of blend all the different sciencey things with more subtleties.
So you've both mentioned Arvago. I want to just, before we move on to Erin, I'd love to have just go back to Andrea and then also, Kelsey, hear your sort of take, because I don't know that would be common language for everybody. I don't know if they would know what Arvago is. So Andrea, why don't you just give us, your training and how that manifests now in your practice, and then Kelsey, I'd love to hear from you too.
Yeah, of course. So I tend to combine the work that I did with Claire Marie Miller, which is Nurturing the Mother Fertility Massage. And that includes a lot of reflexology for the endocrine system and working through the abdominal center and getting a lot of ease in the body. And then the Arvigo is Arvigo Mind Abdominal Therapy. And it's again, a lot of focusing on where the uterus is sitting, how the ligaments that hold the uterus in place might need support or might need work, and really getting the whole musculature that supports our pelvic floor, our hips, and the uterus to really be in the best space possible. And also bringing a lot of blood and oxygen and lymph movement into those areas so we can cleanse and clear and really have them as healthy as possible.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's all. I just do Arvigo. So Arvigo, my abdominal therapy. Is, everything that was just mentioned there. I think I probably go about it. I've received it from body workers, and it's definitely more of like a body work feeling, which is what I love about it. But I think my sessions are usually a little shorter. It's usually more in like a, not necessarily diagnostic way, but also kind of more in the getting into the digestive system way from a medical, probably more of a medically perspective. But I like being able to offer that subtlety for body work because it's so important. And I think it's something that often goes looked over in terms of fertility care because it's important.
Yeah, and it really seems like it will also set up, not just for healthy conception, but also then healthy pregnancy and perhaps easier postpartum recovery and all of that as well.
And I use it too, like in the case of PCOS, let's say, like if we're working on PCOS, it's a great adjunctive treatment modality, if you will, for working with supporting the ovaries and healthy hormone function and all that jazz. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, I also find that it really helps, on the physical spectrum, it really helps to prep the body for labor and to have an easeful and healthy labor. Because if we have a pelvis, the pelvis, the bones of the pelvis, if they're kind of misaligned, or if any of the musculature is misaligned, it changes. I love that I can't do this on this screen because it's backwards from how I would normally be holding my hands. It's hilarious. Anytime that there's any sort of misalignment, it changes the space that the baby's growing in, and it changes the way that the baby is sitting, in particular as we get into the last trimesters of the pregnancy. And so anything we can do to help make that space be more open and more full leads to usually a easier labor.
Awesome. I'd love to shimmy on down to Erin. She's on the bottom part of my screen here. So Erin, talk to us about who you really can best help in your practice.
Similarly to the other two, I work with a really wide spectrum of people, from people who are, 6 months out from the process, who maybe just got off birth control or haven't even gotten off birth control yet, who just kind of want to optimize so that they're prepared the best they can when they start trying, to people who are getting an IVF transfer tomorrow. I'll do acupuncture to support that as well. And everything in between. I would say the majority of patients that I see have already been trying for a while and are either in the middle of already working with reproductive endocrinologists or their OB and having already failed a couple times in treatments with them, or have been trying for, anywhere from 1 to 3 years on their own and aren't quite ready to make the leap to Western medicine yet and are wanting support to try to maximize things before they go to the next level. Hopefully they don't have to go to the next level. And then there's also, it's really a super wide range. I also work with a lot of same-sex couples to help optimize their fertility, because obviously there are unique circumstances that they don't get to just try every month easily whenever they want to. It always has to be timed. And so they really want to make sure that they're making the most of every chance that they have to conceive. I work with single parents who are using sperm donors. Really, it's a really wide range, and I can work with a wide range of people because the tools that I have, lots of people know about acupuncture, and I know somebody mentioned PCOS in the chat here, and there are acupuncture protocols that are shown to be as effective as Clomid and Letrozole at inducing ovulation in women who have PCOS. So we can do really direct treatment like that, but also I kind of like to talk about it like it's a garden, right? You have the seed, but you also have the soil. And so with acupuncture, herbal medicine, nutrition support, what we're trying to do is make sure that not only are the eggs and sperm as healthy as they can possibly be, but that the uterine lining and the hormones are operating as optimally as possible, so that when that magical time happens, when the sperm and egg connect, that there is a chance there's a much more chance that it's going to be a successful pregnancy, because the desired outcome is not just pregnancy, it's a successful pregnancy with healthy baby and healthy parent. I also have quite an emphasis in my practice on high risk people who have had multiple miscarriages. I work a lot with that, where, especially in cases where medical doctors are not sure why the miscarriages are happening. So I work to support early pregnancy in those cases as well.
What I think is so beautiful about what each one of you really are saying is that it's you really can come at any point to get this support. You know, you each spoke about, or, you know, Kelsey and Erin, you guys really spoke about 6 months before trying to conceive to, you know, I have an embryo transfer tomorrow. And so I think that that's such an important point, that all of your medicines that you're providing are of value really at any point. I'm curious, I'll just go back to you, Erin. I'm curious if there's sort of a desired time when you would have somebody come to you for acupuncture, whether or not, you know, let's just say that they have a thought that they want to have a baby at some point. What would be your recommendation for maybe somebody that's just thinking on down the road, I'd like to have a child?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that allows me, and I imagine that the other two women would agree, that it's so individualized. All of our medicines are so completely individualized to the person and their circumstance and their goals, that there's not an easy answer to that. If somebody is coming, I always like to say 6 months is good for pregnancy prep. If you don't know that you necessarily have any issues, or even if you do, that gives us plenty of time to work on a whole range of things, because hormones are complicated. They're all interconnected. It's not just follicle stimulating hormone and the LH that you're, using your OPK tests to check. It's what's going on with your cortisol, and what's going on with your blood sugar, and what's going on with your thyroid. And all of these things are so interconnected. And both Andrea and Kelsey mentioned digestion, and, our digestive system, a healthy digestive system is the way we get all of our nutrients delivered everywhere that they need to go. And that includes to those eggs and the sperm cells. And so if that's not working optimally, then we have to focus on that. So it's not a cut and dry. I wish I had a better answer for you. But generally speaking, I would say minimum probably 3 months is ideal. I definitely see people who are already in the middle of an IVF cycle. And the thing that I say is something is always better than nothing. But I don't think any of us, I think most of us would, maybe all three of us would say that, true healing, like this kind of medicine, it's not like just giving a pill and forcing an ovulation. It's a whole systems approach. And so while I'm absolutely 100% glad to help somebody in any stage of the game, ideally having in that 3 to 6 month time frame to work with somebody is definitely more ideal.
Kelsey, I see you wanting to talk. Just go ahead and unmute. Yeah.
I muted when there was like a bombarding happening in my room here. Thanks, Corinne. I love that you brought that up, Erin, in terms of it isn't just taking a pill to induce ovulation, because I think we all think about the same way, that like we're creating this space for not just healthy pregnancy, getting pregnant, but bringing home healthy baby, and the like continued health of parents throughout the early, also hard years of having a newborn at home, and, navigating postpartum and all of that. It's like the simple, statement of trying to work on digestion 3 months before trying to conceive, to make sure that that's on board, so that there isn't a shift into an autoimmune situation postpartum or something like that. It's super helpful. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I would also love to add to that there's a huge emotional piece that a lot of times people don't think about when they're getting into conception. And many times what I find is the sooner that someone can come and see me in the process, the more we can kind of work through some of those background layers of the emotional trauma that they may have, or stories that they have that they're holding in their bodies that are really keeping them from conceiving. And so that part feels incredibly important, to take the time to work with all of the stuff that comes up. We live in a culture that is very like, I want this right now. Like, I want to go to the clinic and they're going to make many eggs as possible happen. And like, it's going to happen tomorrow. And we forget that it really takes time, not only for our body to be prepared, but also for ourselves to be really emotionally in a stable place to kind of sustain us through a pregnancy. And a lot of us have a lot of background stories that we're really unaware of. A lot of old trauma, miscarriages, abortions, partnerships, the history of our parents or our grandparents and how that impacts us as well. So taking the time to remember, like, give yourself plenty of time if this is something that you truly want to step into, if parenthood is something you want to step into, to give your time to get to the emotional place for that.
I love that. It's so amazing to hear the three of you, because you're really setting up this holistic picture of what it is to conceive and carry a child and become a parent. And I know that just for me, full disclosure, Erin is my acupuncturist, and she's but just to have her, after I had a miscarriage, to be able to really sit in her office, and she provided something very different than the Western medical care that I got, which I was really grateful for. And I, had the surgery and it was really brilliant. And then there was this container and this space that she held that was a very different experience. And Andrea, I think what you were speaking to as well, this sort of, emotional piece and healing that I really had to do after that experience, to then continue down the fertility journey and get to the place of IVF. And so I just love the marriage of all of those things, working on the physical and working on the emotional and the spiritual. It all needs to happen. Anything else that you guys want to add before we kind of move on to another question? Cool. So I think, why don't we start to talk about, because we've really just talked about conception and pregnancy, and, I would love to talk more about when there is, some challenges. So perhaps somebody's maybe been trying to conceive for a while and they're sort of realizing, okay, I might need some support here. So I'm curious about your guys, if you work with other fertility specialists, if you really do have a kind of holistic approach in that way. And if you're, sort of looking to get to the root of what's going on, like, do you do that in your practice, or are you, seeking out other fertility experts to really figure out what's going on? So Erin, why don't I just shimmy down and start with you? So, once somebody is sort of on the fertility journey and having some challenges, are you the person that's really getting to the root cause of that? Are you working with other specialists? How's that look in your practice?
I would say all of the above. I'm very well versed in Western medicine and what they have to offer and how they work and where and when it's time to call that in. I would say in my practice, especially because I went through fertility issues myself, I am very aware of the fact that everybody, almost everybody, whether you're 27 or 37 or 42, we tend to feel this clock ticking on our fertility. And even though I do think that we have this incorrect conception, I always say, your eggs are not sitting on the grocery store shelf going bad. That's not how it works, but that's the vision that we're kind of sold. Yeah. And that's what we think. Like every day is another day I'm losing of my fertility. And I don't want to dismiss that, because it very much is true. We all have an end point for our fertility. And I would never, ever want to waste that just by continuing and saying, oh, let's just natural at all costs. That is not how I operate. I'm here to help you have a family, and whatever that means, I am here to support that. So I definitely, and particularly, I would say with patients that are showing signs without even looking at blood tests, you can generally, like I can usually make a pretty educated guess if there's endometriosis, if there's PCOS, if there's a thyroid issue, if there's something that's going on that physiologically is really hindering infertility, that could be diagnosed by some sort of testing. And so if that is the case, depending on where we are in the journey, I definitely will refer somebody for that testing, whether it's to their OB or to a naturopath or somebody else who has the power to order those tests. We acupuncturists in Oregon cannot order blood work. But I'm also very glad to refer people to reproductive endocrinologists. If that is necessary. I know all of the reproductive endocrinologists in this town. I know how they operate. I know what kinds of people they're better at working with and what kinds of people maybe that clinic is not right for. So I feel like it's my duty not just to support them with my medicine, but also to know when it's appropriate to bring in other medicine. And sometimes that's before they might have guessed, it's not common, but every once in a while I do have a patient come in who has had maybe some really, remedial blood work done, and the blood work combined with the age and what's going on with their fertility makes me think we don't have 6 months to wait here. I'm here. I will help you through this whole thing, but I think it's time for you to right away go also work with this person. Let's not waste time. Because like I said, there's an endpoint and none of us knows exactly what that is. And I would never, ever want to waste that last few months of someone's fertility. Even though there are so many options, and then we could go on to a tangent and talk about donor eggs and donor sperm. And there's so many other ways that you can start a family. Excellent. But if you want to have a baby in your own womb with your own eggs, there's a time frame. And so I'm super happy to work with other professionals, whether that's pelvic floor PTs or massage therapists or naturopaths or reproductive endocrinologists, whoever it is. I have a very good referral network. I get referred to by other OBGYNs and reproductive endocrinologists to help support patients that they maybe are struggling with. So I'm super glad. The more, the merrier. I mean, honestly, we're talking about trying to help people have babies, and whatever I need to do, whatever your decisions are in that, I'm here to support that.
I can personally attest to that, Erin. I so appreciated your frankness with me, and also your, real desire to be collaborative and bring up the hard conversations. And I just think that was such a strong part of what we did together.
Well, and I think, just to say one more quick thing, I think that because Andrea and Kelsey and I have the luxury of the way that we practice, that we get to spend time with our patients. A reproductive endocrinologist, OBGYN, they don't get to spend a lot of time with their patients. And so I think it's part of my job also to prep people for what they might hear. Because if you're going to the reproductive endocrinologist to get blood work done, and what you're going to hear from them is you need to use donor eggs, that's a hard thing to hear from somebody who doesn't have the time to sit with you emotionally and help you process that. And so I think that that's a very important part of this piece that I'm sure we're all super glad to be able to give our patients, is to give them that emotional support as well. And our treatments can help through that, so that it's not just clinical. And now what do I do with this devastating piece of information that I just got? And how do I move forward?
Yeah. Kelsey, I saw you nodding a lot, and I want to turn it over to you, because it's so nice to have this, Erin comes from this Eastern perspective, and then you've got the Western perspective. So I'd love to hear more from you.
Yeah, I love all of that. It's such an intimate time, right? Trying to get pregnant, especially if those conversations are coming up in a provider's head of maybe we should think about something else. It becomes a really intimate process. And I like to have those conversations early on, no matter, what's your vision for a family? What's your family planning vision? Do you want 6 kids? Do you want 2 kids? Do you want 1? Do you want to maybe adapt? Like, all of it is really, I think, helpful to lay out on the table so that everyone's expectations can continue to be checked in on and met in that way. I do love to work collaboratively with other providers as well. I can order labs, so I do that usually first and foremost, because I like to have that, science backgroundy way to check on things and make sure that, what I, again, might suspect is happening with thyroid or cycles or whatnot is actually happening or not. So I do a lot of that diagnostic work, and I love working on the root cause level of trying to figure out the underlying issues. I think that's where the long-term healing happens more than just getting pregnant. So that's like my primary goal across all of my care is root cause medicine for sure. So I can do that. I can order labs and imaging and all of that. But if an assessment comes back something that doesn't feel comfy for me to work with, I definitely refer to REs and OBs. I also don't do like pelvic exams and that kind of thing. So I refer out for those sorts of things if we think there's something structurally going on with the cervix or the uterus. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Andrea? Is your work, does it tend to be sort of collaborative care with other fertility specialists as you're working with people that are looking to conceive?
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of my work for sure. It's out of the scope of my practice to do any of the diagnostic pieces. And so those are really helpful for me to know specifically what's happening for someone hormonally, what's happening if they do have a particular diagnosis, or even if I suspect there is a particular diagnosis like PCOS, or if they're presenting with a lot of symptomology that would coincide with a particular diagnosis. And I absolutely will refer out to someone else so that they can have more solid information and we have more information to work with while they're on my table. And I think it's really important to look at any situation from various different lenses, and having other providers who are going to look for things that I wouldn't have any background or knowledge in is really, really helpful for me and helpful for my clients.
Yeah. Isn't that it at the end of the day, right? Is that, ego is dissolved, and that really, what you are all looking to do is best care for the people that you're seeing. And that's really what I'm hearing is that, Kelsey saying, oh, if it's out of my scope, I'm referring to OBs, and Erin saying, we'll refer to the reproductive endocrinologist, and you as well. It's really, I'm hearing that you guys are not like looking to be these superheroes or something. Like I'm going to save the day no matter what, like you're all so clear on what your strengths are, and then, when to collaborate on care. I think that's so brilliant. So brilliant.
Well, and I think like what Kelsey mentioned with root cause, with Western medicine, like traditional Western medicine, Clomid, letrozole, all of those kinds of things, it's not root medicine. And so even, I'm sure both of you would agree with me that even if somebody is using those things, the goal is what's the root here though? Why do we need to bring these medications in, and what can we do then to support you so that even if you are doing those medications, the outcome is likely to be a lot better than if you're just doing those medications on your own. So it's wonderful to be able to collaborate because like you said, none of us can do it all.
Yeah, and that's always the most powerful provider, is somebody that's so clear on what they can help you with, and then also so clear on what they can't. This is super fun. I just want to say, I'm having such a blast. I really feel like I'm sitting down with girlfriends and like having tea and learning stuff, and it's really amazing. So I just want to thank you guys again. Why don't we, let's talk about, so we talked a lot about what you guys sort of provide in these really incredible physical medicines. And Andrea touched on this amazing point about, emotional health and really creating a space where there can be healing that happens. But I want to know, each one of you, what you feel like your superpower is. So what's your superpower when you're working with fertility patients? Andrea, I'm going to just step on down to you. Yeah, what's your superpower?
Gosh, I feel like that's such a question. It's so simple and so complex all at the same time. But I do actually feel like for me, kind of my superpower is dealing with a lot of the emotional aspects around fertility and really helping people process trauma and process the things that are blocking them emotionally around their fears around conception. And again, like all of those old stories that they're holding, things around their own body and the ways that they feel super disconnected from their body. So for me, integrating a lot of the craniosacral therapy that I do and the other fertility practices that I do together has really allowed me to hone in on what are the things that are keeping them away from what it is that they desire, or getting to the core of what is really true for them. And, I've had some clients who, as we do the work, what we realize is that their ideas around wanting to conceive are not even their own. And when they really get down to it, they don't want a child. And so having a lot of clarity around that before you become a parent is really important. So for me, yeah, I would say my superpower is kind of dealing with a lot of the emotional baggage that blocks our truth.
As you were talking, I'm thinking again about your, this sort of through line for you, that you work with pregnancy and then also with infants, and what a gift that is. Getting goosebumps right now, actually. What a gift that is to think about, historical traumas and family traumas, and sort of thinking about epigenetics and how these things can really be carried through generations, and that you're really providing this space to heal before a baby comes into this world. And so I don't know, that just really struck me. I think that's so incredible and such a gift.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to be able to do that work. It's really sweet, and it's really sweet to be able to, in particular, work with someone who has already had a child and is trying to conceive again, and see how they're able to work through what happened through their first pregnancy and come into a different pregnancy in a very different mindset, a very different physical body, and a very different emotional body to bring in another child if they had any sort of issues in labor or a really difficult first pregnancy. Yeah, I feel really blessed to be able to do the work that I do and support people in these various stages, and then meet this little one when it comes earthside and see how it is present in the world and the energy that it brought throughout the whole process, and then what it's like in person. It's pretty cool.
Amazing. How about you, Kelsey? What's your superpower?
My superpower, I should be wearing my superhero mask. That's
Yes.
probably somewhere in this playroom behind me. Beyond like just the physical work, I guess I do is like my commitment to my patients. I love to be there for like every step of the way with them because like Andrea's even said, and Erin, it's not just like the physical, like having a baby or getting pregnant. It's holding that space for everything that's going on with their world in that realm, because a lot of times we hold on to those patterns in our own bodies. And committed to finding the underlying issue is really something that I'm super passionate about, and again, really committed to, because that's where the lasting healing can really happen. And I think it's empowering for folks to get pregnant without, if they can get pregnant without any additional support in that way, and figuring out the underlying cause, the cause for hormone imbalances or things like that. We can figure out what's triggering those things, support that, and then they can get pregnant and conceive naturally, which is always really, really sweet. But anything along that spectrum, just really committed to making sure that their care is the best quality care for them in whatever they're doing. Yeah.
Amazing. Erin, what makes you a superhero working with patients?
Okay. Well, I would say, first of all, I don't know if I would call this a superpower. That seems kind of like a weird thing to call it. But I am really good at working with people who have had multiple miscarriages. And I think that's because overall in dealing with fertility, and this goes back to, again, kind of the reason that I got into this particular field of reproductive health, is because I'm really good at holding space for people while they go through this process. I'm really good at holding space for them through the ups and downs of fertility and trying to get pregnant. And then also likewise through the ups and downs of pregnancy. Because a lot of times, you spend a lot of time trying to get to the pregnancy, and then here comes the pregnancy, and it's not always what you expected. And same with postpartum. So it's really about helping people through transitions and being able to hold that space so that they can have the emotional journey that they need, and have a safe space to explore what their emotions are, and have some really good grounding support throughout that. So I would say that that's one of the things that I'm best at.
That's so beautiful. Each one of you really has this, and it's conveyed, I feel like, even just over our video right now, this commitment and this passion, and it's really what an incredible gift for the people that you're treating. So I want to leave a little bit of time. It looks like we've got a couple of questions to sort of wrap everything up. And I thought maybe before we go on to the questions, we'd go around again and just hear your sort of best advice for someone that's really thinking about trying to conceive. What advice would you want to pass on to them? So Kelsey, why don't we start with you?
If you're just thinking about wanting to try to conceive, then find a provider that you resonate with for whatever type of care that you're looking for. Now's the time. Like we've all kind of said, there's so many layers to chip away at, to either make sure that a healthy fertility journey is in your path, or that you have good digestion, or that you are processing, grandma's problems that you might be holding on to your body or whatever, right? So now is the time to find somebody that you really resonate with. If you are thinking about reaching out to somebody to try to support your journey, if you've already been on your journey, then my biggest advice is always that there's nothing wrong with your body, or there's nothing wrong with you or your process. It's all just a part of that journey, right, for you. And there's nothing wrong to be fixed. It's all just something that we can offer support for.
Thank you for saying that.
It comes with it. It always comes up that there's something wrong. And if there's anything that I feel really passionate about in any world of healthcare, is that there's nothing wrong to be fixed. It's that we're offering support for your body to kind of find that rebalance and that alignment.
That's such an empowering perspective too, to really be able to, go to a provider and know that it's not, okay, I'm here and you're here to fix me because I'm broken. But rather that it's this, sort of team approach, and that, you have your knowledge to be able to provide the support. I just think that's invaluable, I'm sure, for people to hear. Erin, how about you? What would be your advice for someone that's thinking about conception?
My advice would be, probably very similar to Kelsey's, but also just in the absence of even seeking out support, if you're thinking about trying to get pregnant, the first thing I would do is, do a little assessment of your life. How does baby fit into your life? How, if there's a partner involved, how does that partner, are you on the same page as far as what that actually means and what's going into your body? And that doesn't just mean food, but sleep, self-talk, relationships, all of that. And start trying to, make your body the place where you want to receive a baby. I know when I was trying to get pregnant, one of the things I kept saying to people, I was in a job I hated. I was so stressed out. I had just finished grad school. And I was like, I don't even want to be in my body. So why would a baby want to be in my body? And it's not, again, it's not like you should be punishing yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, but make your body a place that you enjoy being and really learn to celebrate your body. Because going into this process, maybe it will be really easy and maybe it won't. But either way, really creating that foundation for yourself is going to help whatever the journey ahead is, whatever it looks like. Trying to reestablish or establish for the first time a really loving relationship with your body. And that means showing it love, like I said, with food, with exercise, with relationships, with boundaries, with self-talk. I think that's one of the best things that we can do at any point in our lives, but certainly when we're about to undertake a journey like this.
I think that message feels particularly resonant right now as well, that we're, there's just less, a lot of us are having less human interaction and yeah, I think that's such a beautiful offering and reminder that all of the things that we're taking in and that we're telling ourselves are, using that word resonant again, but internally resonant. So thank you for that. How about you, Andrea? What would be your advice for someone that's looking to conceive?
Yeah, I would agree with both what Kelsey and Erin said. It's super important to find a provider that you resonate with, like Kelsey said, and in particular that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel safe enough to go through what's going to be a pretty roller coaster process for most people. Even if it is really perfect and quick and easy, it's still pretty emotional and a bit of a roller coaster. So having providers that you feel comfortable with and feel safe with, and that you can talk through the challenges a bit with, is really important. And then also what Erin was saying around creating a body that feels really healthy and really good. And I think assessing how committed are you to this process. If you have the desire to have a child, it is a lifelong commitment. And so taking the time, right? Like I think we forget that it's a big decision to make. And so making the choice to do that, taking the time to actually make the commitment to take a large chunk of time to prep for that commitment, and have just as much commitment to that prepping process as you would to the actual child is really important. And so taking a little bit of time to really check in, like, oh, how much do I want to put into this? And can I put myself first? Can I remember that I'm the most important piece of this puzzle, and that having the support that I need is not being selfish, it's actually taking care of me in this process. I think those are really important things to think about.
Yes. Well, I thought we could go to a couple of audience questions if you guys are cool with that. This was so juicy and helpful. And so we've got a question, I believe. Yes, we've got a question from Marnelli. I'd like to learn more about PCOS and fertility and how naturopathy can help. So I'm going to direct that to our naturopathic.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks with PCOS. It's usually, for me, like there's a wide spectrum of PCOS, like different underlying imbalance triggers. There's the endocrine system and lots of different aspects within the endocrine system that can trigger something like PCOS. So I usually do a lot of underlying like functional testing to figure out how the hormones are out of balance and what detox pathways the hormones are out of balance with, and treating on that level. So kind of that underlying hormonal situation. But then also external support with my abdominal massage, the Arvigo techniques, to make sure that the ovaries are getting well supported with blood flow and nerve signaling and lymph flow and all of that stuff. So there's a lot, for sure, a lot of underlying hormonal digestion. There's a big digestive piece to PCOS as well. So figuring out how individually those aspects fit into a particular picture.
Awesome. Yeah, I can just say from personal experience that having naturopathic care has been incredibly helpful in detecting some food sensitivities and some insulin stuff that was going on that I really had no idea. I had this sort of like subclinical-ish situation going on until I was like, oh, it's really hard for me to have a baby. So yeah, really having that detective work done was super, super, super helpful and so illuminating. So
I love that. I often refer to myself as a medical detective. It's like my mentors, like we would always joke about it, that's like really what we're doing with fertility care, is like really getting in there and figuring out what's going on. And it's empowering for the patient most than anything. Like you get answers like what's going on in my body, right? And then we get also a really clear picture on where we can treat for progress.
Totally.
Yeah.
Anything that Andrea, you wanted to add, or Erin, you wanted to add about, I know she asked specifically about naturopathic medicine, but maybe Erin, if you've got something specifically that you wanted to say about PCOS.
I think I mentioned too, there's some acupuncture protocols that can actually help stimulate ovulation. We also are kind of like Kelsey said, I think we have this idea in Western medicine often that there's like that there's PCOS and it's this one thing, and really it's a spectrum. There's a pretty wide spectrum of what that looks like and what symptoms somebody might have. And so treating it becomes figuring out where those imbalances are with you in particular, and then deciding what the best path forward is. I always am working with herbal medicine, custom herbal medicine with patients with PCOS. And we're always talking about diet, as I'm sure Kelsey and Andrea are as well, because diet is a big piece where you actually get control. You get to control the choices you make with diet, but it's really, almost impossible to go online and Google that kind of stuff and self-diagnose. There's tons of information out there, but I wouldn't be able to weed through it for myself. When I need help, I have to go seek out a specialist. You don't have the perspective. And so, finding somebody that really can understand root cause and help you get to that with a custom plan for you can really make a huge difference, because PCOS is oftentimes very treatable, and oftentimes not even I would say, not super difficult to treat.
How about you, Andrea? Anything to add specifically about PCOS?
Yeah, I was going to say, also that it doesn't always present in a way that, is kind of the standard of PCOS. There's a lot of people who present with kind of the hormonal imbalance that is the higher testosterone dynamics. But there's a lot of people who have PCOS who don't present in the very typical ways. And so definitely for those people in particular, it's really important to have someone who is really looking for the root causes for them specifically, because there are some variations in PCOS and how it comes across. And in regards to the work that I do, it's a lot of what was mentioned before of really getting a lot of really good blood flow and lymph flow and helping support the ovaries and that whole pelvic bowl and all of your endocrine system to really, massage can really bring a lot of fluidity to that and to pull a lot of excess hormones out of the system by bringing a lot of good blood flow and lymph flow to those areas and helping the body remember how to balance hormones.
Brilliant. I believe we have one more. Yes, we do have one more question here. This is a great one. So what about the other side of fertility? The quality of sperm, how do these modalities support infertility on the other side? So perhaps if you're working with a heterosexual couple and there's a sperm situation. I mean, there is in conception anyway, but if you're perhaps working with a heterosexual couple, are you guys supporting that as well? Let me go to Erin first.
Yeah, I do. I work with sperm health for sure. I wish more people would come in for that kind of stuff. We still live in a culture where we put reproductive success, for the most part, on the shoulders of the person with the uterus. And it's, it's a 50-50 proposition here. And the nice thing about sperm is that it is constantly being produced. And so it usually is not as complicated to affect change. And oftentimes doesn't even take as long as it does with female reproductive hormones. It's often more straightforward. But again, you need to know, has there been like a heavy metal exposure? Has there been some sort of, massive electronic exposure or things like that? Like, again, where is it coming from? Why is the sperm not as healthy as it could be? We also just overall are seeing dramatically lower sperm counts and issues with morphology in general in the male population. That it's really concerning. Just since the 70s until now, just because of chemicals and exposures and things like that in our environment, in our food source, just overall health of the American human being. And so again, it's a holistic approach. We're glad to work with it. I'm sure Kelsey and Andrea have more to say, but I'm sure they similarly are glad to work with sperm health as well.
Yeah, Andrea, can you talk a bit about that? I know that you're, focused on folks having a uterus, but do you also work on sperm health as well?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I actually wish that more folks with penises would come in for the work. And that, it feels, I have clients that I work on, but it's typically not fertility associated. I'm doing this similar work for different reasons, for kind of dealing with prostate issues and things along those lines. But as Erin was saying, it's much easier to deal with fertility issues in regards to sperm because it is being made so quickly and constantly that you can work through that very, very fast. And essentially I'm doing very similar work through the pelvic floor and the back of the the pelvis through the glutes to really bring all that great blood flow and to really bring all that fluidity to these areas. That's all, in particular with sperm, that's all it is based off of, is how much fluid can be added to it. It's a system that really needs support and needs to be hydrated. And when we can bring a lot of blood flow and energy to that area, it becomes much healthier, much faster. And sadly, yeah, as Erin was saying, that it typically falls on the person with the uterus to figure out what the problem is. And the person with the sperm kind of gets left out of the equation when they are a huge part of it. So definitely something for folks to think about out there. If you really want to balance things out and have good health overall for the child you're bringing in, look at both sides of the equation.
So this has been so amazing. I want to just leave a few minutes here because we've just got a few minutes left. I really want to just leave some time if you guys have any last little nuggets that you want to pass on to those people that are listening. It feels like it's been 5 minutes and over an hour. It's just been so incredibly interesting. So does anybody have any last minute wisdom? I mean, you've dropped so much wisdom on us, but any last little sprinkles?
I was going to say just one more thing to that last comment about sperm health, is that I treat a lot of couples. I have a lot of couples that come in for fertility together, which is really sweet. And in that way we can do a lot. So definitely if a partner's on board, and I usually also will give, like, if it is just one half of the heterosexual couple, I'll like give the nutrition recommendations, right, or for both sperm and egg health in that way. So it becomes more of a team effort, even if it's just at home. But that's always a part of it. And genetically, I do a lot of genetic care. So I'm also always curious about looking at A and B's genetics is going to make C's genetics together, right? So how can we make sure that those genetic polymorphisms are really healthy? It's always fun.
Amazing. Thank you three so much for spending your Sunday with us. It was just really incredibly fun. And super, super, super information heavy. So thank you for that. The parent trip I know that there's one coming up. I can't remember if it's in December, I think. So the parent trip parenttrippdx.com, yeah, is the website. So definitely check out more parent trip events. Hopefully Olivia and Sarah will want to do more of these panels, which are just brilliant. And thank you everybody for tuning in. It's just been such a joy and a pleasure to hang out with you on Sunday.
Thanks for hosting this, Corinne.
Yeah, thanks. You did great.
Yeah. You guys made it so easy.
I think we all love talking about this, so it made it really easy to spitball some fun thoughts.
Yeah, and I see like collaborations happening in the future too. You know, it's just, I want the three of you to like teach a class or have a symposium or something.
Oh, a symposium.
I don't know. You don't have to like put on your monocle and have a symposium. It's more informal, but yeah, I feel like this was, I don't know, it was a creative cauldron, perhaps.
Love it.
Full circle. I like it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we're signing off. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Beep, beep. Beep, beep.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you liked our channel, please make sure that you hit the button at the bottom and subscribe so you don't miss any other videos we have coming up.
If you want to know the moment we post, hit that bell to notify you.
Ding, ding. We're also on Facebook and Instagram.
At the Parent Trip PDX.
And we have a Patreon that we'd love you to check out.
We do all of this for free. We love to support you. We love to share all these resources. But it would help us out a lot if you came and gave us a little support so we can keep doing what we do.
Thanks.